I did finish the docu-series on the Dynasty.
How was it?
I enjoyed it. I learned some things I didn't know. I just seeing the de-evolution of a chipper, more emotional Bill Belichick to the monotonous robot that we have now because of Spygate and then Deflategate and the Aaron Hernandez stuff, obviously the Malcolm Butler. But the best thing was whenever they asked him, Belichick was, I already told you about that. It's like, no, this is the first time I'm asking you about this. Oh, we already talked about this. Whenever they talked about the Rams and Patriots Super Bowl, the second one, where the defense pretty much dominated that game, you could see him just get so joyful talking about that because this was one of those where Tom wasn't Tom terrific at the time. Like he still played well, but it was all about the defense, changing it up and destroying the Rams that game, holding them to 3 points. You okay over there?
No, no, I still hate that Super Bowl happened.
Welcome to the Circus Catch.
I'm always up for the challenge.
Are you kidding me? Guess who called that one?
I am dubbed the Houston player hater. I don't have time to believe.
You got butthurt.
What is he thinking?
Is he the greatest of all time?
It is like magic.
It was an unusually somber week for us here at the Circus Catch. Well, maybe not for all of us, but certainly for me. Being a fan and being attached to a team means more than just liking a logo or following a social media page. It's about investing in a team's impact on community, your culture, your family, and ultimately your legacy. The ultimate reason we become so invested as fans of certain teams is because of the players and all their stories. We've all had where were you moments when legends of our teams did something so incredible that it rewrote the history books. I don't think it's any secret that when it comes to American football, my allegiances lie with the Rams. And with this team, no one has ever had a bigger impact than Aaron Donald. Upon hearing of Donald's retirement, an unusual thought entered my mind. How am I going to break this to my kids? At face value, it seems like such a trivial thing to think about, but I think back to when I was a kid. Michael Jordan, Jerry Rice, Mike Tyson, Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, all great players, but to my generation, these guys might as well have been superheroes. That's how legendary they were. My kids were fortunate enough to see someone in that echelon play for their favorite team. They have yet to live through a season without Aaron Donald. As a defensive tackle, you're not expected to do things like rush the edge, pass block, or sack the quarterback on a weekly basis. They're typically expected to just stuff the run, gap stop, and make tackles. Donald, however, was able to do it all. Just ask Russell Wilson. Perhaps that's why he's the only DT in NFL history to win Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. He took the league by storm as soon as he was drafted, winning Defensive Rookie of the Year. He also is the only player not named Barry Sanders to be elected to the Pro Bowl every single year from rookie to retirement. He's an 8-time first-team All-Pro, only missing that honor his rookie year and his injury-shortened season of 2022. He did all of this while battling double and triple teams in nearly every snap he took for an entire decade. Aaron Donald is the epitome of what it means to be a Ram. Other than perhaps the greatest show on turf, this team has long been predicated on their defense, from the fearsome foursome to the mob squad. There was no strategy for stopping him on the field. All you could do was follow a 2-step program. Number 1, throw as many guys as you could at him, and number 2, pray he couldn't beat it. Though quite often he did. Just ask Joe Burrow. In an era where defenses are accused of being soft by old heads, he was a man that was genuinely feared. Just ask Geno Smith. He loved the horns with a passion and just as passionately had a fire to dominate enemies of the horns. Just ask Jimmy Garoppolo. We often talk of Mount Rushmores when it comes to the all-time greats, but when it comes to defensive stars, for me, Donald is 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll see you in Canton in 5 years. And with that, we bring in the guys. Jesse and Jackson are both here. Austin may or may not be joining us. He's obviously doing very big things right now. We're excited for him. So we'll see if he has time to hop on this week. But fellas, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Jordan?
Good to be back.
Jesse, I know you've got a lot that you've been ready to let rip. Let's go ahead and let you start out. What is it that's bothering you today?
Man, why is Indiana State not in this field? That is pissing me off really bad. This team has the body of work, a 29th in the net. That's the highest net ranking for a team since the net got introduced. They didn't make the dance. That is unreal. I feel so sorry for the Sycamores and that fan base, the alumni base. They deserve a chance at the dance this year. They're gonna have to prove themselves in the NIT. Like if they win that whole damn NIT, they know the committee will know that they screwed up because having Virginia in the field over Indiana State is just sickening to me. So that's my starter gripe for the night.
Speaking of the NIT, you had mentioned that there was something that you had to say about that, so let her rip again. What's going on with that?
So, I mean, obviously, I don't know if you guys really pay attention to it, but the NIT is not the NCAA tournament, right? It's a secondary tournament, best of the rest, if you will. And there's some schools that really think that they're better than the NIT, that they're above playing in the NIT. I'm going to name them off right here. Pittsburgh, St. John's, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Memphis, and Indiana. Tom Crean said it last night on ESPN during the NIT selection show. If you don't want to play, have those players sit out. Coaches don't want to coach in the NIT, they can go take a seat in the stands. Some of these guys, some of these seniors are never going to play basketball again. How dare you, as a university, as an athletic program, not afford these players the opportunity to do what they came to this school to do, besides an education? Obviously, that's a given. But they came here for basketball as well. They're student athletes. Let them freaking play. That is absurd. It's wrong. And I am disgraced by these 6 programs.
The college football playoff coming in where they're going to be starting with 12 and then even going to 14 potentially.
Mm-hmm.
They've been talking about making the March Madness doing the NCAA tournament. There's been rumors of it going up to 96 teams. And it's just going to completely do away with the NIT. Even for the seniors that want to play, you got to let the younger people get the reps, because you could be in the NIT this season and then next year you could be in the dance. It's just giving you more reps. Mm-hmm. It's preparing you for the future. And it's a shame.
I kind of thought Seton Hall was gonna make the dance, to be honest with you.
I did too. They lost to St. John's in the Big East tournament. Really, I think is what hurt them. Recency bias for the committee is a pretty obvious thing. Every human has recency bias. Every human has bias to begin with, but it's just, what have you done for me lately? And that is solely the reason. I think you look at the reason that Colorado State and Colorado in particular is in. They made it to the Pac-12 championship game. I don't think they necessarily belong in the tournament either. I would have swapped Indiana State and Seton Hall for Virginia and Colorado. I can't see how Virginia made it at all to begin with, but regardless of recency bias, it's just, I don't understand. But those are going to be, either way, those are going to be some good games on Tuesday and Wednesday. Boise State, Colorado, Virginia, Colorado State. Looking forward to that. Regardless, I don't think Virginia or Colorado belong in the tournament.
Speaking of this Tuesday-Wednesday schedule, let's move right along to a game that I'm seeing on here, guys. I see Montana State and Grambling. Did that one stick out to you guys at all?
Well, Grambling State making their first ever trip to the dance, just like Stetson is. Both teams are going to be on the 16 line. Grambling isn't really, I don't think, going to be prepared to take on Montana State. But Montana State really kind of struggled this year, too, just to get to this point. They're 17-17. Kudos. I'm happy for Austin, especially. And Montana State's dancing for the 3rd year in a row. The winner of that game will play Purdue, which is going to be a massive challenge. Neither of those teams have the size to match up with Zach Edey and Purdue, so that'll be a challenge.
Montana State, Big Sky champions once again. Speaking of, Austin did inform us. He has work duties, so it doesn't look like he'll be making this show, but obviously he's there in Dayton right now. He's there to cover Montana State. So rooting for the Bobcats. Hope he stays and is able to cover the tournament as long as possible. You never know. I mean, gonna be a challenge even if they win this game going up against Purdue, but we'll see what happens. But
Well, we also saw what happened to Purdue as against a 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson last year. So it's and it's 3 years in a row for Purdue. They lost to 13 seed North Texas in 21. They went down to 15 seed St. Peter's, who went on that magical run to the Elite Eight 2 years ago, and then last year
who is back in the tournament, by the way.
Yes, St. Peter's again is a 15 seed. So a lot of special stories about this tournament. I think this is going to be a vengeance tour for Purdue. I don't think they're going to win it all, but I think they're going to get farther than have in the past 3 years for sure.
Not to toot my own horn, but real quick, when I turned on the Montana State-Montana game, Montana State was down, and they went on the craziest run I've ever seen in a basketball game at any level. So, Austin, you're welcome. You should have bought me a ticket to go out to Dayton to be out there with you guys. Would have made it a hell of a lot farther than you're gonna, because I'm not there. So I'm just saying, I'll try to watch as much as I can. But if I was there in person, straight to the top, guaranteed. Well, for those of you who know me, I don't need to explain who my next guest is. For those of you who don't, I don't know if you can see the resemblance, but he is the Tweedledum to my Tweedledee. Ladies and gentlemen, my brother, who has not interviewed on the podcast yet, but is now doing his first interview, Joshua Wright. Josh, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So you've done camera work before. You've been in some of the skits we've done before. So not a stranger to what goes on here, but this is the first time getting behind a mic.
Correct. A lot of behind the scenes stuff, but first time on the air.
Well, thanks for coming on. So for those of you who don't know Josh, he is an A's fan, which is great. He is a Raiders fan, which is not so great. So why the A's? Why the Raiders?
Well, I guess growing up, that's the teams that we were given the choice of, Raiders and A's. Raiders, I guess, because I liked football a lot more. I gravitated towards it. The A's, I wasn't as big as a baseball fan. However, they were in the same area as the Raiders, Oakland at the time. So it was just a natural thing.
The Raiders now, they've been in Vegas for a few years. What was your initial thought when they said they were going to finally make the move out of the Bay?
The Raiders are no stranger to moving, obviously. Been, suing the league over it a couple times, right? But interestingly enough, I really wish they could have stayed, but I understand the whole move. They've been trying for years to get a deal done and just wasn't able to do it. The only team left sharing a baseball and an NFL stadium together. Just kind of made sense. They had to go somewhere, and then the league kind of blocked them from going to LA. I think they were a little worried about that.
I think a couple of other teams had some better plans in place of moving back to LA, so that might have been the reasoning behind that.
Perhaps.
So I don't know if you know this, but the city of Oakland is the only city ever to lose an MLB franchise, an NFL franchise, an NBA franchise with the Warriors going to San Francisco, and then also back in the day, an NHL franchise took off from Oakland as well. So they're the only city to lose every team in all four major American sports. And like I said, they are about to lose the A's. The A's are going to be neighbors again, not roommates this time, but neighbors with the Vegas Raiders. How does that feel to have your teams back in the same city?
Yeah, it's coincidental that they were both sharing a hometown, and now they'll be sharing another one again. Great news having their own stadiums, though. So much better looking than what they had in Oakland, sharing just kind of what was able to get them by.
So the Coliseum, obviously a classic stadium, the Oakland Coliseum. When they tried to put two teams in there, in my opinion, kind of ruined the essence of what the stadium was supposed to be. But the Raiders are out of town. The A's haven't been able to do anything. Well, haven't been able to do much with it. But now, I showed you a little bit ago, they actually do have renderings out for the A's new stadium.
Yes.
Tell me what you think about that.
It's pretty interesting. I'm not sure that exact location, how that is on the strip there. But it does look like it's going to be a fairly small MLB stadium. Although if the trend continues, which they didn't have a big attendance record, I would say, so maybe that would be okay. It does look pretty cool with the screen and open concept in the back. I'd be interested to see how that looks as it's built.
Very much getting compared to the Sydney Opera House.
Yes,
I'm sure you can see those comparisons.
Yeah, those vibes are coming through.
Which a lot of people try to joke about it, but why? The Sydney Opera House is amazing. I don't know why you wouldn't like a stadium to look like that. My personal opinion. So enough about the A's. Let's talk about the Raiders again. This has been kind of a crazy offseason for a lot of teams. The Raiders are no exception to that. Talk about what you feel like this offseason has brought, starting with the hiring of the head coach.
Yeah, in years past, the Raiders are no strangers to firing coaches and having interim coaches. I feel like we've had some decent interim coaches in the past and never hired them more recently, I would say, when maybe they should have got the job over some candidates. And so I think Antonio Pierce really helped capture the players' attention the later half of the season, and he really got them to kind of fall in line and want to play for him. So given that, I think that they probably made a good choice in signing him.
There's also been a lot of moves on the offense and on the defense. Offense, few pieces missing now, but defense looks, this is weird to say about a Raiders team, but that defense looks pretty stacked.
Yes, yeah, that is a little strange because typically, I mean, the Raiders struggle on putting a defensive team together. Also, another probably part Antonio Pierce to have, being a defensive player-minded guy, he also has that respect of being a former player, and they've got pieces like Max Crosby already there, and even some of the younger guys that stepped up later in the season. We added Christian Wilkerson just recently from the Dolphins.
Big signing.
Yeah, and I think everything needs to start up front when you're building a team: defensive line, offensive line, and then you build out the back ends from there. Yeah, we also, probably the biggest piece that we're missing this year so far is Josh Jacobs coming back. Well, not coming back, signing with the Packers. So we'll see how that offense shapes up, because definitely got a few questions there.
All right, got a last question for you real quick before I let you go. Fill in the blank. 2024 is going to see the Raiders start blank at quarterback.
Ooh, starting quarterback. That's tough since the draft hasn't came up yet. Although I have a feeling Antonio Pierce. No, we don't talk about Antonio Brown. No. Antonio Pierce, being a defensive-minded coach, I feel like he's going to fix other things before he fixes the quarterback. I feel like if you draft a quarterback high to an organization where not all the pieces are in place, they can sometimes struggle. So why not fill that in once we complete other pieces around it? I would say, given that information, why not roll with Gardner Minshew?
Yes, I love it. Minshew Mania in Vegas, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm ready for Uncle Rico.
All right, Josh. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate having you, and come back anytime.
Thank you.
Let's not forget, everybody, we're doing the bracket challenge here for the Circus Catch.
Yes.
We've been talking about it. It's been on our YouTube. We have the link there. We have our link on our Instagram page. Please join us. Embarrass me. I'm begging you to embarrass me in this tournament challenge. Okay? I'm going to go all chalk. I'm going all chalk, baby.
All chalk?
What?
No, I'm not going all chalk.
You're going to get dead last going all chalk.
Yeah,
Not going all chalk. I just love the option that they have. Is like, would you like to go all chalk? It's like, no, I actually want to do some research before I make my picks. Thank you.
Got until Thursday at 11, because essentially the first four don't count. You can pick teams on the first four to go on, but they don't count individually.
I'm pulling up the password and everything because there is a password to get in. The group name is The Circus Catch Podcast. The Circus Catch Podcast. It's a private group, but our group password, all lowercase, all one word, Circus Catch 2024.
Well, what is your bracket strategy, Jackson?
Mascots.
Mascots?
The cute ones. Yes.
That's still a better bracket strategy than chalk picks. So we did talk about it a little bit during last year's March Madness, Jesse, but for those who don't remember, how do you go about picking your brackets? Like what is the best strategy? Because you don't want to pick chalk pick because that never works out. What's the best way to go about it?
You want to know? I had a friend of mine who actually asked me that this morning, and I likened, based on the chaos that has been this men's basketball season this year, I likened filling out a bracket to playing craps at a casino, because realistically, right now, this season's been so chaotic, so crazy. Literally anything can happen. I could literally see any one of these 68 teams winning a game or two in the tournament. It's just, that's so outlandish to think about, because when they first expanded the field to 68, it was dominated by the big schools, and we just didn't see the 15s and the 2s. The first real splash we saw out of a 15 was Steve Nash's Santa Clara team in 1994 taking down Arizona, or 93, whatever it was. But filling out a bracket, my strategy is I go based on how I've looked at this team's body of work throughout the entire season. I do utilize a little bit of recency bias, because if you're playing hot, you tend to continue playing hot in the postseason. That's entirely how I came to the pick of Illinois this year. I really think they're going to continue this hot stretch that they tore through the Big Ten tournament. But it's just, for me, being such a steadfast and passionate college basketball fan, it's all about looking at each team's body of work, following throughout the season, and looking at their recent success.
All right, so Jesse, you already revealed your pick for national champion, but let's talk about the regions. Let's talk about that East, because that East region is tough. Yeah,
Loaded. UConn did everything to get that number 1 overall seed, to snatch it away from Houston and Purdue by dominating the Big East tournament. And then they got loaded up with Iowa State, Illinois, Auburn, San Diego State, who they played in the national championship last year. Florida Atlantic, who went to the Final Four last year, is in a potential second round matchup for them. I don't know what they did to piss off the committee, but yeah, that East region is loaded, and I definitely think that's the toughest path to the Final Four for anybody. But I think whoever wins the national championship, obviously I have Illinois winning it all, but I think whoever wins that East regional is going to be a favorite to win it all, because they went through that toughness of the East. To get through that East regional, you're going to have to be tough, and winning 4 games in that regional is going to be a challenge. And that team that comes out of there, to me, is going to be the favorite to win it all.
I'm looking at it right now, and I know that UConn, they're the reigning champs, but it's been a while since we've had back-to-back champs in the tourney. I think that overall, coming out of the East, I do think that I am going to just take UConn out of it. I'm going to advance with UConn. I'd like to see Illinois against UConn, or even Iowa State versus UConn. But you're right, Jesse. That Florida Atlantic and UConn matchup could be interesting.
Yeah, man, there's so many tough schools in that tournament, and obviously I'm not as well versed as you guys, but just based on what Iowa State did to Houston, I think that they're coming in hot, and I think that teams better be ready for them. So, and it's hard not to pick UConn, who is a very clear favorite to a lot of people. And then Jesse, I trust your opinion above many others, so you picking Illinois makes me a little nervous. But if I had to pick a team right now, I'd say Iowa State out of that Eastern region. So don't know how confident I feel about that, but I'll just say for now that Iowa State is who I'm looking at right now. But let's take a look at some of the other regions. How about the West? What do you think about that one?
This is my wild card pick, my wild card region. I don't necessarily think it'll happen. I really don't, but I have St. Mary's coming out of this region as a 5 seed. I'm using a little bit of, my personal want and a little bit of thought, because they did beat Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference Championship. They beat Gonzaga twice this year. They have a solid body of work, but they're going up in a 5-12 matchup against Grand Canyon, who is so dangerous. They won the WAC and it wasn't particularly close. Grand Canyon also shoots free throws more than just about any team in the country. I think they're 6th or 7th in the country in free throws attempted. And St. Mary's plays at such a slow pace, and Grand Canyon is an up-tempo attack. So St. Mary's first round game is going to be, I think, one of their most challenging. I don't think North Carolina is a 1 seed. I thought Iowa State should have gotten that 1 seed, that last 1 seed. Iowa State ended up being the last 2 seed, which is completely absurd to me. But North Carolina got it. I don't see North Carolina getting past the Sweet 16. But yeah, I like St. Mary's and I like Arizona as well. I also have New Mexico going to the Sweet 16 as well, as an 11 seed. So that is my wild card region for sure. I have a 5 versus 2 in the Elite 8, and I have an 11 seed making it to the Sweet 16 as well.
I was going to talk about New Mexico. I'm actually also looking at Nevada passing up Dayton. Obviously, once you get into the Sweet 16, it's going to be different. But yeah, New Mexico potentially could bounce Clemson. Obviously, I'm going to go with Baylor. I just don't know who I would have going out of it because I have to do a little bit more research. But those going at least into the Sweet 16, I will most likely be picking North Carolina being the one. But Michigan State, St. Mary's, probably Bama, New Mexico, Baylor, Nevada, and Arizona. Those are what I'm looking at.
I'm with Jackson on this in this regard, that I have to do a little bit more research in this one. North Carolina obviously losing to NC State. Shout out to our good friend Torrey Holt, an NC State grad. His page is blowing up with all the Wolfpack stuff right now. St. Mary's is kind of a bold pick. Obviously, you've been following him a little bit more than me, but a 5 seed just in general always seems like a bold pick. So I don't know yet. I don't have it narrowed down.
Keep in mind, too, San Diego State was a 5 seed going to the national championship.
That's true.
No, last year is an outlier because last year was such a crazy tournament, but it's not unheard of for 5 seeds to make runs, deep runs. 5 seeds have a tendency to be that little, either they're going to go bounce by a 12 or they're going to make a good run.
But I mean, like you said, to your point too, Grand Canyon is a real team right now that they need to watch out for. And that's the very first matchup they have. By the way, it looks weird to me. I'm wearing the glasses into the camera. I never wear the glasses while we're filming this, but I'm going blind and I need to be able to see the bracket. So my apologies for the look, everybody. But I don't know what we're doing if I don't have them on, so I'm sorry.
Be sure to do my taxes later.
Okay, I will. You do not want me doing your taxes.
No, I don't.
Oh man, let's move on to the South, shall we? So Houston across the board. Agreed. Okay. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Jesse.
I mean, Houston is my pick to get out of this region, but man, my heart is in NC State's back right now because of that insane run that they had going to the ACC tournament.
5 wins in 5 days.
5 wins, 5 days. They're also the first double-digit seed to ever win the ACC tournament. The highest seed previous to that was 7 seed Virginia Tech. This team is scorching hot, and they were nowhere near the bubble, let alone being actually in the tournament. Nowhere near the bubble going into DC this past weekend. So, but Houston is just they're going to be hungry, like I talked about before. Wisconsin is another team that's really picked up the pace. They were terrible throughout the month of February, but they got hot at the right time. I like Houston and Wisconsin meeting up in the Sweet 16, but that Houston firepower is just going to be too much for Wisconsin. And I think Houston's the obvious favorite in the South region.
Now, for me, obviously, I'm going to be going with Houston. I kind of like Oakland a little bit for them getting in the tourney, but they're going up against Kentucky, and it's hard for me to. That's one of those where I'm going to go with my heart and not my head on that one, just to just for some points. Hopefully, I can get one of them upsets, but I am going to be riding the NC State train as well. Florida, Marquette, and I'm thinking also Wisconsin. I'm really curious about the Nebraska and the Texas A&M just because of the athletic directors and a lot of the movement that was going on between the schools. And you know that they're both going to be out for blood a little bit in this one, but whoever is going to face Houston, I don't think they're ready for that.
For me, and like I said to Iowa State's point earlier, like they smoked Houston, but I think Houston is still the most legit threat in that part of the bracket. So I do think they come out of the South. But man, I would love to see NC State keep moving on. I'm all about that feel good story right there. At least to the Elite Eight, and who knows how much further they could get. But yeah, they're, to your point, on fire right now. All right, Midwest Regional. What are you thinking about this one, Jesse?
Man, I'm going to talk to you guys about two upset bids. I didn't mention it in the South Regional. I'm going to mention it now. But James Madison over Wisconsin is a very popular 12-5 pick. They're 31-3. They just don't have a game against a team like Wisconsin. So that's why I don't think they're going to get it done. Number two, popular 12-5 pick or double-digit seed pick is McNeese. And I've been talking to you guys about McNeese for, I talked about it with you, Jordan, last week.
Yeah.
I think this team, Shahade Wells and company, can get it done in the tournament. They're big, they're fast, they turn teams over. And we've seen these small schools that play this ragtag, really fast and confusing style press and zone attack. It confuses these big schools for whatever reason, and they bounce them real quick. Gonzaga has not looked like Gonzaga of old this year. I think McNeese can be dangerous. I have McNeese going to the Sweet 16, mostly because I have Samford as the 13 beating Kansas. Kansas looks like a lost puppy right now. They have not looked good. They didn't look good against Cincinnati in the Big 12 tournament. Coming down the stretch at the end of the regular season, this team does not know how to play defense against a high school JV team, let alone against a SoCon champion in Samford. Samford is the 7th highest scoring team in the country. That's going to tear apart Kansas's defense, I think. But my pick to come out of this regional is Creighton, the 3 seed. They were a bad call away from knocking off San Diego State and getting to the Final Four last year. No disrespect to San Diego State, but Creighton belonged in the Final Four. Official's mistake. That is widely accepted. They are hungry to get back. They've got the pieces. Kalkbrenner and company, they're going to get there. I think Creighton is so dangerous.
Well, Jesse, I was also on the Creighton train. I would see them going at least pretty deep in the Midwest. I'm going to have to go with my head instead of my heart on this one if Montana State, but I'm going to be picking Purdue. Purdue can't get bounced.
Not again.
Not again.
Nope.
Yeah, you just see the name Gonzaga and you just think, oh yeah, automatic pick. But you're right, Jesse, just the Gonzaga and McNeese and then the Kansas and the Samford. I probably would go McNeese and then I probably would do Kansas though. Just depends on who's Texas is going to end up having to go up against in Tennessee for at least my Sweet 16.
This is also one of those that I do have to do a little bit more research on. Funny thing is, I was actually leaning Creighton, because Purdue scares me. Just because I don't know too much about what they've been doing all season, but again, it's kind of one of those things. You said everybody has a recency bias. Well, I know what I've seen recently. They scare me. Not that they're completely volatile, but I think Creighton is kind of one of those picks that, whereas you would normally have Gonzaga as one of those teams that makes it far, that's usually a team that makes it a decent way. I don't know. I don't have very much research done on this section of the bracket, but it's kind of where I'm leaning right now. It's kind of where my head is at the moment.
I pretty much have Houston going deep. I just need to see who's going to be going up against them after I get everything close to at least the Final Four. I would like Houston to finally actually win the Final Four because they've been having so much heartbreak being in the tournament especially in the 80s with Phi Slamma Jamma. I'd like to see them finally get it done.
I don't have my national champion picked out yet. I need to review all the mascots and see which one I think is the cutest. So TBD on that. Well, we got a lot of basketball to watch this week, guys. So much coming up. And Jesse's super elated about this. March Madness, men's bracket, women's bracket. Can't wait to see what goes on. Can't wait to see what wild upsets are going to upset our brackets right from the get-go.
I'm ready to be embarrassed.
I'm so excited, man.
Happens every year. And yeah, Jesse, this is bigger than Christmas for you. I can see that.
For sure. 100%. My favorite time of the year, man.
All right, fellas. Well, again, this is going to take some getting used to from Wisconsin to Texas. In our hearts from Ohio with Austin, who's there covering the tournament. Out here to California. We will see you guys in a couple weeks. Sayonara.
See ya.